The United Nations Security Council chamber had never been so silent. On the central holographic display, a being that looked almost human, save for its iridescent skin and entirely black eyes, smiled with unmistakable contempt. "Your species," Ambassador Excelthor of the Vexarian Stellar Empire said, his translator converting his chittering speech into perfect English, "has achieved something quite remarkable. You've managed to survive despite your profound limitations." His smile widened, revealing rows of crystalline teeth. "We've been watching Earth for some time now. Your nuclear deterrence, your primitive orbital stations, your quaint attempts at reaching Mars, all very impressive for a species barely out of its cradle." Secretary General Martinez gripped the edges of his podium until his knuckles turned white. "Ambassador, if you've come to mock us—" "Oh no." Selthor raised a hand, and the hologram shifted to display Earth's military assets. Nuclear silos, aircraft carriers, space stations, all laid bare with terrifying precision. "I've come to offer you salvation. The Vexarian Empire spans 300 systems. We've uplifted dozens of species, guided them toward their true potential. Under our benevolent rule, Earth cooled." A lieutenant burst into the chamber, face pale. "Sir, our nuclear deterrent, it's gone offline. All of it. Every silo, every submarine." Gasps and hurried whispers filled the chamber. The Chinese delegation immediately began making calls. The Russian ambassador stood up, shouting accusations. But in the midst of the chaos, in a secure facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Jessica Wright allowed herself a small smile. "Right on schedule," she muttered, watching the Vexarian demonstration unfold on her quantum-encrypted display. Her aide, Lieutenant Commander Jackson, raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, they're showing off," Wright said, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface, "proving they can shut down our most powerful weapons with the push of a button." Classic shock and awe. She paused, studying the energy signatures from the Vexarian transmission. "But they've just shown us something far more valuable than their technological superiority." Back in the UN chamber, Selthor continued his speech, clearly enjoying the panic he'd caused. "As you can see, resistance would be unfortunate. Accept our guidance, and Earth will prosper. Refuse." The hologram shifted again, showing a barren world, its surface scarred by weapons far beyond human understanding. "Well, you've seen what happens to planets that refuse our generous offer." Secretary General Martinez had regained his composure. "How long do we have to decide? Your species does possess some wisdom after all." Zelthor's smile faded. "You have one Earth month. When our fleet arrives, we expect your unconditional surrender." The hologram flickered and vanished. In her underground command center, Admiral Wright was already moving. "Get me a secure line to the Joint Chiefs. Priority Alpha." "Ma'am," Jackson said, "shouldn't we be focusing on getting our nuclear deterrent back online?" Wright shook her head. "That's exactly what they expect us to do. Scramble around trying to fix systems they can disable at will. But they made 3 critical mistakes today." She pulled up the recorded transmission, highlighting specific data streams. "First, they got cocky. Showed us exactly how their override systems work. Look at these energy signatures. Second, they assumed that just because they can see our obvious weapons, they know everything we're capable of." And the third mistake. Wright's eyes gleamed with the same intensity that had earned her the nickname Digital Phantom during World War II. "They gave us time to prepare. 1 month is an eternity when you're fighting an enemy who thinks they've already won." She brought up a classified project file, codenamed GHOSTECHO. "Lieutenant Commander, what do you know about quantum holography?" Above them, the Vexarian ambassador's ship broke orbit, confident in their impending victory. They never noticed the tiny quantum scanner that had attached itself to their hull during the transmission, broadcasting their every move back to Admiral Wright's facility. The first piece of humanity's counterstrike was already in place. The game was on, and the Vexarians had no idea they were already playing by Earth's rules. With all due respect, Admiral Wright, you want us to fight an alien armada with holograms. General Chen's skepticism crackled through the quantum-encrypted feed. On the massive display in the Joint Chiefs emergency bunker, other military leaders shared similar looks of disbelief. Admiral Wright stood before them, her silver-streaked hair pulled tight in a regulation bun. Not just holograms, General. What I'm proposing is the largest military deception operation in human history. She gestured, and a holographic display transformed into a sea of stars. During World War II, my team developed quantum holography to fool hypersonic missiles. Now we're going to use it to fool an entire empire. She brought up technical specifications that made even the most hardened veterans lean forward. Project GHOST combines 3 technologies: quantum entangled projection arrays, adaptive AI algorithms, and our newest development, micro-stealth drones smaller than a housefly. The quantum scanner we planted on their ship has been transmitting their technological capabilities for the past week. Wright continued. Their sensors are advanced, yes, but they rely heavily on quantum signature detection. That's their weakness. We can't beat their real ships with our real ships, but we can overwhelm their sensor networks with false positives they can't ignore. Admiral Santos of Brazil raised her hand. And these micro-drones, what role do they play? Wright's eyes lit up. That's where it gets interesting. She pressed a button, and a small case rose from the center of the table. Inside, floating in a magnetic field, was a device barely visible to the naked eye. Each drone carries a quantum entanglement node and electronic warfare suite. When our holographic ships appear to attack, these drones will provide real electronic signatures, heat emissions, and even debris if necessary. The Vexarians won't just see our phantom fleet. They'll feel it, hear it, and their sensors will confirm its existence. How many of these drones do we have? General Chen asked, his skepticism fading. Currently, 10,000. But our automated factories can produce 1 million more before the Vexarian fleet arrives. Wright's voice hardened. We'll create the illusion of an armada so massive it will make them question everything their intelligence has told them about Earth. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Harrison, stood slowly. The resources required for this operation will be a fraction of what we'd spend trying to build real ships we can't complete in time. Wright interrupted. And every nation needs to contribute. The projection arrays must be positioned throughout the solar system. The drone factories need to run at maximum capacity. Our real fleet, small as it is, needs to be equipped with the most advanced stealth systems we've ever developed. She paused, looking each leader in the eye. The Vexarians expect us to either surrender or throw our handful of ships at them in a suicidal last stand. Instead, we're going to make them face their worst nightmare, an Earth that's far more advanced than they ever suspected. Silence filled the room. Finally, General Harrison spoke. You earned your reputation in World War II, Admiral. The digital phantom they called you, after you made an entire carrier battle group disappear from every sensor in the Pacific. If you say this can work, he straightened his uniform. You have my support. One by one, the other leaders nodded. Operation GHOST ECJO was approved. As the meeting concluded, Lieutenant Commander Jackson approached Wright. Ma'am, the first wave of drones is ready for testing. But there's something else you should see. He handed her a tablet. The quantum scanner picked up transmissions from the Vexarian ship to their home fleet. They're laughing about us, making bets on how quickly we'll surrender. Wright handed the tablet back, a cold smile playing across her lips. Good. The more they underestimate us, the better this works. Humanity spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare against superior forces. It's time to show the galaxy why you should never mock a species that turned deception into an art form. She started walking toward the testing chamber. Begin Operation GHOST ECHO. Let's give our friends a show they'll never forget. The Vexarian Grand Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their massive ships casting long shadows across the void. 5,000 warships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, arranged in perfect attack formation. Fleet Commander Zexlar stood on his bridge, his iridescent skin reflecting the light of distant stars. Status report on Earth's defenses. Exactly as our intelligence indicated, Commander, his sensor officer replied. A handful of primitive orbital platforms. Their fleet, if you can call it that, consists of 30 ships, none larger than a scout vessel. They're hiding behind their moon. Zexlar chittered in amusement. They didn't even try to build up their forces, send the surrender demand and Niyuika and take seats. The sensor officer's voice jumped an octave. Massive energy signatures. Everywhere. Ships decloaking across the entire system. The tactical display erupted with new signals. Where empty space had been moments before, thousands of warships now hung in perfect formation. They seemed to phase into existence like ghosts, their hulls bearing markings unlike anything in the Vexarian database. In her command center beneath the Rockies, Admiral Wright watched the Vexarian fleet's reaction through the quantum scanner's feed. "Right on schedule," she murmured. "Deploy Phase 2. The phantom ships began moving in impossible patterns, their formations shifting like liquid metal. Each hologram was supported by clouds of microdrones, creating heat signatures, gravitational disturbances, and electronic emissions that made them indistinguishable from real vessels. "Impossible," Zexlar hissed. "Their technological level. We monitored them for years. They'd barely achieved fusion power." His weapons officer shouted, "Sir, we're detecting antimatter signatures from their lead vessels. Energy readings are off the scale. They're powering weapons." "Evasive action," Zexlar ordered, but before his fleet could respond, the first attack began. The phantom ships launched what appeared to be energy weapons, their beams cutting through space. The Vexarian fleet scattered, performing emergency maneuvers to dodge weapons that didn't actually exist. In the chaos, real microdrones attached themselves to their hulls by the hundreds. Direct hit on their flagship. Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported, watching the holographic display in Wright's command center. "Well, they think it was a hit." Wright nodded, her fingers dancing across the control interface. "Their sensors are feeding them exactly what we want them to see. Launch the next wave." Across the solar system, the Phantom Armada split into 3 massive battle groups. One appeared to be protecting Earth. Another seemed to be emerging from Mars, suggesting a hidden base. The third materialized near Jupiter, its ships larger than anything the Vexarians had encountered. "Commander," the Vexarian sensor officer was practically screaming now. "The Earth ships. Their energy signatures match nothing in our database. They're using weapons technology we've never seen." Zexlar stared at his tactical display in growing horror. Everything he thought he knew about Earth's capabilities was wrong. Had they been deceived all along? Were humans actually far more advanced than anyone suspected? "Sir," his second-in-command whispered, "perhaps we should withdraw and reassess. If they've hidden this level of technology from us." A phantom dreadnought larger than anything in the Vexarian fleet appeared directly in front of their flagship, its weapons ports glowing with simulated energy. The microdrones attached to the Vexarian ships transmitted false sensor data, making the illusion perfect from every angle. "Full retreat," Zexlar ordered, his voice shaking. "Send word to the Empire. Earth is not what we thought. They're not primitives at all. They're—" He never finished the sentence. The Phantom Dreadnought launched a simulated weapon, and every sensor on his ship screamed warnings about an antimatter cascade. The Vexarian fleet broke formation in panic, their perfect military discipline shattered by an enemy they couldn't understand. In her command center, Admiral Wright allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 complete. Begin real combat operations. As the massive Vexarian fleet retreated in disarray, Earth's actual stealth ships slipped out of hiding, ready to strike at an enemy that was now jumping at shadows. They're regrouping near Saturn's rings, Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Vexarian fleet had recovered some of its composure, forming a defensive sphere that gleamed against the gas giant's pale light. Their communication encryption has doubled. They're starting to adapt. Admiral Wright stood before the global command interface, her expression carved from stone. Good. That means they're scared. She keyed in a series of commands, and the holographic display zoomed in on the Vexarian formation. And scared people make mistakes. Launch Operation Overture. Across the solar system, the Phantom Armada began its most ambitious performance yet. The holographic ships split into impossible configurations, appearing to phase through solid matter as they attacked from all directions simultaneously. Each false strike was orchestrated to herd the Vexarian fleet exactly where Wright wanted them. "Sir," a Vexarian sensor operator called out, his crystalline teeth chattering in stress. The humans are using some kind of quantum tunneling technology. Their ships are passing through the rings as if they're not even there. Commander Zexlar gripped his command chair. Impossible. Matter can't. They must be using some kind of cloaking technology. Target their emission signatures. The Vexarian fleet opened fire, their energy weapons carving brilliant paths through space. They hit nothing but ice and rock from Saturn's rings, while the real threat went unnoticed. Thousands of microdrones, hidden in the debris field, activated simultaneously. In Wright's command center, a new alert flashed. "All drones in position," Jackson reported. "Starting electronic warfare suite. Now." The effect was instantaneous. Across the Vexarian fleet, ships began reporting critical system failures. Navigation computers showed phantom obstacles. Weapon systems targeted non-existent threats. Communication channels filled with ghost signals that seemed to come from their own command structure. "Status report," Zexlar demanded, but his officers were drowning in false data. That's when Wright launched her real attack. Earth's actual fleet, just 50 ships strong, emerged from stealth. They were smaller than the Vexarian vessels, but they carried humanity's most advanced weapons. Quantum disruption torpedoes, designed specifically using data from the original quantum scanner. "All ships, execute attack pattern Sierra," Wright commanded, her voice steady. "Remember your training. They may have bigger ships, but we only need to hit our targets." The human fleet struck like surgical instruments, their real weapons synchronized perfectly with phantom attacks. When the Vexarians fired at holographic ships, they exposed themselves to actual torpedoes. When they tried to track the real Earth vessels, ghost signatures confused their targeting systems. "We're being torn apart," Zexlar's second-in-command shouted as another explosion rocked their flagship. "How are they predicting our every move?" The truth was elegant in its simplicity. Every evasive maneuver the Vexarians made was tracked by the microdrones attached to their hulls. The Phantom fleet adjusted instantly, using AI algorithms to present the most threatening illusions possible, while Earth's real ships struck from blind spots. "Their flagship shields are down," Jackson reported, allowing himself a small smile. "The drones have successfully disrupted their power distribution." Wright nodded. "Send the message." Across every Vexarian communication channel, in their own language, a single message appeared. "You were warned not to underestimate us. This is your final chance to retreat." To emphasize the point, a massive holographic dreadnought materialized directly above the Vexarian flagship, its phantom weapons ports glowing with simulated energy. The microdrones created such convincing sensor readings that every instrument showed it as real. Zexlar stared up through his ship's viewport, face pale. His mighty fleet, pride of the Empire, had been reduced to a confused, panic-stricken mass by an enemy that seemed to defy physics itself. "Fall back," he whispered, then louder. "All ships, emergency retreat. Get us out of this system." In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Wright watched the Vexarian fleet scatter. "Phase 2 complete," she announced. And now they'll run straight into Phase 3. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the one you fire, she added, glancing at Jackson, but the one you convince your enemy you might fire. The news spread through the Vexarian Empire like a virus. First, it was just whispers, rumors of the mighty Grand Fleet's retreat from a primitive world. Then came the fragmentary sensor logs, smuggled out by junior officers who couldn't believe what they'd witnessed. In her command center, Admiral Wright watched the intelligence reports flood in through their quantum network of spy drones. "It's working better than we anticipated," she said, gesturing to a holographic display showing chatter from across Vexarian space. Their entire empire is buzzing with speculation. "The Vexarian High Command is trying to suppress the information," Jackson added, scrolling through encrypted transmissions. "But they're facing an unexpected problem. Their subject species are particularly interested in the rumors. On the occupied world of Centauri Prime, a former human colony that had fallen to the Vexarians years ago, resistance fighters gathered around a smuggled data terminal. They watched in awe as grainy footage showed seemingly invincible Earth warships dancing through the void, their weapons cutting through Vexarian defenses like paper. What they didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that most of those ships never existed. "Sir," a junior analyst burst into Wright's command center. "You need to see this. The Vexarian flagship, it's just vanished." Wright's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The tactical display shifted to show the last known position of Commander Xexilar's vessel. One moment it was there, leading a remnant of their once mighty fleet. The next, nothing. No debris, no energy signature, just empty space. Did they develop a counter to our tracking systems? Jackson wondered aloud. Wright's smile was cold. No, they fell for Trap 7. She brought up another display, showing a massive network of quantum entanglement nodes. "Remember those warning shots we fired during the first engagement?" Each one seeded their ships with dormant quantum markers. When they tried to engage their faster-than-light drives in that sector, she didn't need to finish. The Vexarian flagship hadn't been destroyed. It had been redirected into a carefully prepared quantum maze. Every time they tried to jump to FTL, they'd emerge right back where they started, trapped in a loop of their own confusion. Across Vexarian space, similar incidents began to multiply. Ships disappeared only to reappear light years from their intended destinations. Communication systems broadcast phantom distress calls. The mighty empire that had mocked Earth now faced an enemy they couldn't even understand, let alone defeat. In the Vexarian High Command Chamber, Supreme Leader Vex Thor raged at his assembled admirals. How did we miss this level of technological advancement? No one had an answer. Their intelligence had been perfect, until it wasn't. Their sensors had been infallible, until they lied. Their military superiority had been absolute, until it vanished like smoke. Back on Earth, Wright received a priority message from the resistance on Centauri Prime. "The Vexarian garrison is in chaos." The encrypted text read, "Their ships keep chasing phantom Earth fleet signatures. They've started firing at their own shadows. We're ready to move on your signal. Send the activation codes," Wright ordered. Across human space, hidden quantum transmitters powered up. The next phase would target not just the Vexarian military, but the very foundation of their empire. "Ma'am," Jackson said quietly, "the latest intelligence suggests the Vexarian High Command is preparing a massive counterattack. They're stripping defenses from their subject worlds, gathering everything they have left for one final push." Wright's expression didn't change. "Good. They're doing exactly what the simulations predicted. When you've spent your entire existence as the strongest force in known space, it's hard to accept that strength alone isn't enough." She turned to face the giant tactical display, where thousands of phantom ships danced among the stars, each one a lie that told a larger truth. "Send word to all commands," she ordered. "Begin Operation Checkmate. It's time to show the galaxy why humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology." She paused, watching as new phantom signatures began appearing in Vexarian home space. It was our ability to turn an enemy's strength against itself. The Vexarian High Command made their fatal mistake exactly when Admiral Wright predicted they would. Their combined fleet, nearly 10,000 ships strong, dropped out of FTL near Mars orbit, weapons charged and ready to end the human threat once and for all. All ships, battle formations. Supreme Commander Vexthor's voice boomed across all channels. We will not be fooled by human trickery again. Fire on any signature that. His voice cut off as every screen in the Vexarian fleet suddenly displayed the same image. Admiral Wright, sitting calmly in her command chair. The transmission shouldn't have been possible through their encrypted networks. "Welcome back," she said, her voice unnaturally clear on every ship. "I was wondering when you'd return for the final act." Vexthor snarled. "Cut that transmission. Purge all communication systems." "Oh, I wouldn't do that," Wright's image replied, seeming to respond in real time. "You might miss the show." At that moment, space itself seemed to tear apart. Quantum ruptures appeared throughout the Vexarian formation, 1,000 points of light that their sensors said were Earth ships emerging from some impossible dimension. But this time, they were ready. "Ignore the phantom ships," Vexthor commanded. "They're holograms, nothing more. Focus on finding their real fleet." That's when the screaming started. "Contact in engineering." A panicked voice called from one of their dreadnoughts. "Humanoid figures. They're inside our ships." The microdrones had evolved. Now they projected holographic Earth Marines directly into Vexarian vessels, appearing and disappearing at will. Crew members fired at phantoms that vanished and reappeared behind them. Entire sections of ships were abandoned as panic spread. In her Rocky Mountain bunker, Wright watched the chaos unfold. "Status on Operation Checkmate. Phase 1 complete," Jackson reported. "Their fleet is fully surrounded by the quantum net. Real space coordinates are fragmenting." The Vexarian fleet's formation began to break down. Ships trying to maintain position found their navigation systems compromised. The stars themselves seemed to shift and change. Reality, as their sensors perceived it, was coming apart. Impossible. Vexthor smashed his command console. "These are tricks. Illusions. We are the Vexarian Empire. We cannot be defeated by." His flagship's lights flickered, and suddenly every corridor showed the same scene through their internal cameras. Earth ships, thousands of them, appearing to phase through their hull plating like ghosts. "That's the problem with building an empire on pure military might," Wright's image said, still playing on every screen. "You forget that warfare isn't just about who has the biggest guns. It's about who can make their enemy question everything they think they know." The real strike began. Earth's actual fleet, now grown to 100 ships through rushed construction, emerged from hiding. Their weapons were precisely calibrated to the frequencies the microdrones had discovered during weeks of scanning. "Multiple direct hits," Jackson announced. "Their shields are failing exactly where predicted. The quantum disruption is. Ma'am, you need to see this." The Vexarian ships weren't just being damaged, they were being unmade. The quantum disruption torpedoes, combined with the Phantom Fleet's sensor ghosts, created a cascade effect. Ships tried to fire on threats that didn't exist, their energy weapons passing through holograms to hit their own allies. "Your empire was built on strength," Wright's transmission continued, her voice now reaching every Vexarian ship in the galaxy through their compromised networks. "Ours was built on surviving against superior forces. We learned long ago that the deadliest weapon isn't the one that destroys your enemy's body." She leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "It's the one that destroys their certainty." The mighty Vexarian fleet, pride of an empire that spanned 300 worlds, began to tear itself apart. Ships fired on sensor ghosts only to hit their allies. Crews abandoned their posts, driven to panic by enemies they couldn't fight. And through it all, the Phantom Armada danced among them, each holographic ship a reminder of how completely they'd underestimated humanity. The collapse of the Vexarian Empire began not with a bang, but with a whisper. As reports of their fleet's devastation reached the Empire's outer worlds, centuries of oppression finally found their breaking point. "Man," Jackson's voice was tense with excitement. "The quantum network is picking up massive upheaval across Vexarian space. Their subject worlds are. They're rising up." Admiral Wright stood before the tactical display, watching as system after system erupted in revolution. The Vexarians had built their empire on fear and military might. Now, with their fleet in shambles, that fear was turning against them. "Send the signal," Wright ordered. "All resistance cells, execute Operation Avalanche." Across 300 worlds, hidden quantum transmitters activated. The same message played everywhere. A complete sensor record of the mighty Vexarian fleet being systematically dismantled by an enemy they'd mocked as primitive. But more importantly, it showed how it was done. "You're giving away our secrets?" Jackson asked, surprised. Wright's smile was razor-sharp. "I'm giving them hope, and a manual for revolution." On the Vexarian throne world, Supreme Leader Vexthor received the reports with growing horror. The Centaurian colonies were already lost. The Regelian sectors had declared independence. And everywhere, insurgents were using crude versions of Earth's holographic technology to wreak havoc on Vexarian security forces. "Send the home fleet," he commanded. "Crush these rebellions before your home fleet is otherwise occupied." Admiral Wright's voice cut through their supposedly secure channels. The tactical display showed their capital ships engaged in combat with phantom Earth dreadnoughts that seemed to phase in and out of reality. In Earth orbit, Wright watched as the endgame approached. Status of the quantum maze. "Complete containment," Jackson reported. "Their remaining ships are trapped in recursive space-time loops. Each time they try to jump to FTL, they emerge exactly where they started. The microdrones are feeding their navigation systems false data, making them think they're moving when they're actually." "Sir," a junior officer interrupted. "Priority message from the Vexarian High Command. They're requesting terms of surrender." The command center fell silent. On the main screen, Supreme Leader Vexthor himself appeared, his iridescent skin pale with defeat. "You have broken us," he said simply. "Our fleet is scattered. Our empire crumbles. Tell us your terms." Wright stood, her uniform pristine, her eyes hard. "Unconditional withdrawal from all occupied worlds. Immediate cessation of all military activities. And a formal acknowledgement broadcast across all channels that you were defeated not by superior numbers or firepower, but by underestimating humanity's capacity for innovation. You would humiliate us further." Vexthor's voice cracked. "No," Wright replied. "I would teach you, and the galaxy, a lesson. Strength isn't just about the size of your fleet or the power of your weapons. It's about adaptation, creativity, and the will to overcome impossible odds." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Your empire fell not because we were stronger, but because you never imagined that a primitive species could turn your own arrogance into a weapon." As the surrender terms were transmitted, the Phantom Armada performed its final act. 10,000 holographic ships appeared around the Vexarian throne world, each one a testament to humanity's mastery of deception. "Lieutenant Commander," Wright turned to Jackson, "send word to all Earth forces and resistance cells. The war is over." And the Phantom Fleet. Wright watched as the holographic ships began to fade, their purpose served. Keep the technology. The galaxy should remember that humanity's greatest strength isn't in the weapons we possess, but in the ones our enemies think we might possess. Across the former Vexarian Empire, celebrations erupted as news of the surrender spread. The species they had conquered, inspired by humanity's victory, began the process of rebuilding their own civilizations. And in every major city, people gathered around displays showing the same image. A vast fleet of Earth ships that had never actually existed, defeating an empire that had never imagined it could lose. 3 months after the Vexarian surrender, representatives from 30 formerly subjugated species gathered in the rebuilt United Nations chamber in Geneva. The same room where the Vexarians had once mockingly offered Earth the chance to surrender now hosted the founding of something unprecedented, the Galactic Cooperative of Free Worlds. Admiral Wright stood at the podium, her dress uniform adorned with the newly created Starfleet Command insignia. The scars of battle had faded, but the lessons remained. "We gather here not as conquerors," she began, her voice carrying to delegates from across the galaxy, "but as survivors. Each of us knows the cost of empire, the price of arrogance, and the value of freedom." In orbit above, Earth's real fleet, now grown to 500 ships, patrolled alongside vessels from other liberated worlds. But it was what they couldn't see that made the greatest impact. Scattered throughout the solar system, quantum projection arrays stood ready, a reminder that humanity's greatest defense remained its ability to make enemies question what was real. "The Vexarian Empire fell not because we were stronger," Wright continued, "but because they never understood a fundamental truth about humanity. We evolved on a world where we were never the strongest, never the fastest, never the most naturally armed. We survived because we learned to think differently." In the audience, former resistance leaders nodded. Many had adapted Earth's holographic warfare techniques during the uprising, using simple deceptions to overwhelm numerically superior forces. "Today, we established something new." Wright's voice strengthened. "Not an empire built on fear, but a cooperative founded on mutual respect and shared innovation. Each member world brings its own strengths, its own technologies, its own ways of thinking." Lieutenant Commander Jackson, now Captain Jackson, approached the podium with a data crystal, the final piece of humanity's gift to the galaxy. As a symbol of our commitment to this new alliance, Wright held up the crystal. "Earth shares the complete technical specifications of Project Jost ECHO, not as a weapon, but as a reminder that true strength lies not in overwhelming force, but in creativity, adaptation, and the courage to face overwhelming odds." The crystal's data streamed to every member world. The Phantom Fleet's technology would ensure that no empire could ever again threaten the free worlds through sheer military might alone. In the Vexarian Containment Zone, a single star system where their once mighty civilization now rebuilt itself, the former Supreme Leader watched the broadcast. "They reveal their greatest weapon so freely," he mused to his advisors. "Do they not fear it being used against them?" His new chief scientist, younger and wiser than her predecessors, smiled. "That's what makes it brilliant, sir. The technology only works because they understood psychology better than engineering. You can copy the holographic projectors, but you can't copy the mindset that made them effective." Back in Geneva, Wright concluded her address. "Let history remember this day not as the end of one empire, but as the beginning of something greater. A galaxy where strength is measured not by the size of your fleet, but by the power of your ideas." As she stepped down from the podium, representatives from across the galaxy approached to sign the cooperative's charter. Each brought their own technologies, their own innovations, freely shared now that the shadow of empire had lifted. In orbit, a final display of the Phantom Armada shimmered against the stars. 10,000 ships that never existed, representing humanity's greatest victory, winning a war not through destruction, but through imagination. Captain Jackson joined Wright as she watched the holographic ships fade one last time. "Was it worth revealing all our secrets?" Wright smiled, watching as Earth's real fleet performed a synchronized maneuver with ships from a dozen alien worlds. "Our greatest secret wasn't the technology, James. It was showing the galaxy that true power doesn't come from having the biggest guns." She turned to face the gathered representatives of a free galaxy. "It comes from having the wisdom to know when not to use them."